Cubans rally calling for an end to the U.S. blockade against the Caribbean nation. Argentina aims to speed up the vaccination of people over 60 years old with the latest shipment of Russian coronavirus jabs. And fighting breaks out in Somalia's capital over presidential term law. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. Thousands of Cubans have rallied across the country and around the world to demand an end to the U.S. blockade against the Caribbean nation. People have demonstrated on motorbikes, bicycles, or even horseback in the province of Santa Clara, calling for the United States to lift its 60-year-old embargo on Cuba. There were also protests by members of Cuban communities abroad, including some 20 cities in the United States. The administration of former U.S. President Donald Trump implemented more than 200 new measures to tighten the decades-old economic blockade on the island. Meanwhile, the Biden administration said it's reviewing U.S. policy on Cuba, but has not yet indicated whether it will divert from its predecessor's foreign policy. The Cuban-Barbadian Friendship Association and the Caribbean Movement for Peace also joined in solidarity with the people of Cuba to call for an end to the U.S. blockade.
Association and the Caribbean Movement for Peace and Integration join all of the international forces that are today standing in solidarity with the government and people of the Republic of Cuba. We also join with them to call for the end of the blockade against the Republic of Cuba. And we will continue to stand in solidarity with the people of Cuba who are fighting against U.S. imperialism and demanding that the United States of America remove the embargo against Cuba. Long live the Cuban Revolution. Forward ever, backward never.
Argentina aims to speed up the vaccination of people over 60 years old with the latest shipment of Sputnik V jabs. Just over half of Argentine adults over 60 have been inoculated with at least one shot out of a total of 7.3 million. The country was one of the first in Latin America to start vaccination, but due to delays in the arrival of doses, it now stays behind Chile, Brazil, and Mexico. Earlier this week, Argentina received 800,000 doses of the Russian vaccine, and there are also plans to start producing Sputnik V in Argentina as early as June if the production line passes quality tests by Russian experts. Argentina is going through a strong new wave of the pandemic with an average of 26,000 new daily cases.
Got now the first dose of COVID-19 vaccine, at least. And I'm already a little calmer to go out because people are scared to go out. You cannot go out anymore, or go to work, or do anything.
Now you hear about more people you know who are unwell. Before we only saw it on TV, but now you hear that a neighbor in the next street or another one that they are all infected. So we have to take care of ourselves a lot now. I think this period is more difficult than before.
Staying in Argentina, Buenos Aires authorities have set up a military field hospital in the capital as hospitals struggle to cope with a new wave of COVID-19 infections. The country's hospitals have been overwhelmed by an increasing number of COVID-19 patients and lack of oxygen cylinders. New lockdown restrictions have already been put in place. Health officials have attributed this surge to the more contagious Brazilian COVID-19 variant. Argentina has recorded almost 3 million coronavirus cases, and more than 61,000 people have died from the pandemic.
We have a very high demand on the emergency room. Doctors on duty receive COVID and non-COVID patients in a much greater proportion than in the previous weeks. We are afraid this wave will overwhelm us, so to speak. The Manaus virus variant is in circulation in the province of Buenos Aires in 70 to 80%. And that could have to do, and I say it conditionally, with the increase in cases, the severity of the cases, with the infection of young people, and with these severe conditions that we are seeing in older adults.
On Friday, health authorities in the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro announced that 90% of residents over the age of 60 have received a first dose of a coronavirus vaccine.
We have finished this phase and will become one of the first capital cities to vaccinate the elderly over 60 years of age. Why did we choose the elderly? What was the justification? They are a priority group because they face the most likelihood of hospitalizations and more chances of dying from COVID-19.
In Rio de Janeiro, people aged over 60 are being vaccinated against COVID-19 with the AstraZeneca jab. The country has registered the world's second highest COVID-19 death toll and leads the Americas and the entire Southern Hemisphere in terms of its overall death rate.
A lot of people are dying and we are worried. So, when we get the first dose, it already gives some relief. And when the second comes, it will be even better.
We are losing a lot of acquaintances, neighbors. I hope the vaccine will calm things down, that it gets better, so we can work, take a walk, because everything has come to a halt.
People aged over 80 are receiving the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine in Peru's capital Lima, as the country accelerates its inoculation campaign using military bases and sports stadiums as vaccination centers. The country is registering more than 300 daily deaths from the virus in what interim President Francisco Sagasti has described as the peak of the second wave.
I have brought my auntie to get vaccinated. She is 86 years old, and this vaccine will protect her from the virus that we are all suffering from at the moment.
We came to get my mother vaccinated. Everything ran smoothly. There wasn't a long queue. Everything in order. They give preferences to people in wheelchairs. But now, thank God, my 84-year-old mother is vaccinated with the first dose.
I didn't want him to get vaccinated. He is 96 years old, and he never gets sick. But my brothers and sisters were all saying that he should be vaccinated, so we are going to get him vaccinated.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. Fighting has broken out in the Somalian capital Mogadishu between different sections of the security forces. Reports said heavy weapons were used and live rounds were fired near the presidential palace. The tension was triggered mid-April after President Mohamed signed a law to extend his mandate, which officially ended in February, for 2 more years. The opposition argued that the move could prolong attacks from Al-Shabaab militias who have been trying for years to topple the government. Local media said the fighting was between pro-government forces and military units that support the opposition, but some former warlords and clan leaders are also involved in the clashes.
Most of the people are in defiance of the government extending term limits. The president, whose term has finished, could lead the country into war. A peaceful demonstration is underway here now. The military are capturing new positions. The country could be taken back into civil war.
The African Union has called for the restoration of civilian rule in Chad, where Mahamat Idris Deby took power this week, following the death of his father Idris Deby Itno. African Union's Peace and Security Council has expressed its grave concern about the establishment of a military council headed by the son of the late president. Idris Deby Itno, who led the country for 30 years, died last week as a result of wounds sustained in a clash against rebels in the north of the country. His son Mahamat, who dissolved the National Assembly and government, has full powers but has promised new institutions after free and democratic elections in a year and a half. In Iraq, at least 82 people have been killed and more than 100 others injured after a hospital caught fire in the capital, Baghdad. According to medical sources, many of the victims were on respirators and were suffocated or burned in the smoke and flames. The COVID-19 hospital caught fire due to an explosion caused by a fault in the storage of oxygen cylinders. Prime Minister Mustafa Al-Karemi suspended Health Minister Hassan Al-Tamimi amid angry calls on social media for him to be sacked as part of a probe that could also include the governor of Baghdad. Syria has received the first batch of Chinese COVID-19 vaccines to speed up its inoculation campaign. A shipment of 150,000 Sinovac vaccines arrived in Damascus airport. The new jabs are likely to speed up the inoculation campaign in the war-torn country, where a vital health sector has been overwhelmed by the pandemic and where infections have been on the rise. The Chinese batch comes a few days after more than 200,000 jabs were delivered to Syria through the United Nations-led platform, which provides vaccines to the needy. The Syrian government has registered nearly 22,000 infection cases, including over 1,500 deaths in areas under its control.
This is the first batch of Chinese vaccines that arrived in Syria. There is another batch of 150,000 from the Chinese Red Cross that will arrive in Syria soon, God willing. These vaccines represent the good sentiments of the Chinese government and people.
And Egypt is set to manufacture some 40 million COVID-19 vaccines this year, as demand for inoculation increases due to a new wave of the pandemic. The country's health ministry announced that experts from China are going to help setting up the production lines to help cover Egypt's and other African countries' needs. The health minister also said authorities has registered a weekly increase of up 10% in some areas amid a third wave of the pandemic. However, he did not provide numbers. Egypt has so far recorded about 220,000 coronavirus cases and nearly 13,000 fatalities.
We are ready with the production lines. Chinese expertise will be arriving in a few days. We will start working to prepare 40 million vaccines doses this year. That can be increased annually to cover all needs of Egypt from this vaccine, in addition to the African countries' needs and countries in the region.
Authorities in India have extended the lockdown in the capital, New Delhi, for another week, following the devastating new surge of infections. For the fourth straight day, India set a global daily record of new infections spurred by a new variant that emerged there, undermining the government's premature claims of victory over the pandemic. Health officials are scrambling to expand critical care units and stock up on decreasing supplies of oxygen. Hospitals and patients alike are struggling to procure a short supply of medical equipment that is being sold at an exponential markup. The health ministry reported some 2,700 deaths in the past 24 hours, pushing India's COVID-19 fatalities to over 192,000.
Corona is still creating havoc and not going down. We have been talking to people and everyone is of the same opinion that the lockdown should be extended. So the lockdown is being extended by a week till next Monday, 5 a.m.
And the World Health Organization has expressed concern over India's COVID-19 situation, urging other countries to be vigilant in combating the pandemic.
The situation in India is a devastating reminder of what this virus can do and why we must marshal every tool against it in a comprehensive and integrated approach. Public health measures, vaccines, diagnostics, and therapeutics. This is a scenario that's playing out around the world and will continue to play out unless we ensure equitable access to the tools needed to save lives. The solution is straightforward. We need countries and companies that control the resources that could save lives to share. The situation.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. The Indonesian military has declared all 53 crew members from a submarine that sank and broke apart last week dead. The military also announced that search teams had located the vessel's wreckage on the ocean floor. Officials had also said the submarine's oxygen supply would have run out early Saturday, 3 days after the vessel went missing off the island of Bali. An underwater robot equipped with cameras found the lost submarine lying in at least 3 pieces on the ocean floor at a depth of 838 meters. The cause of the disaster is still uncertain.
We can declare that KRI Nengala 402 has sunk and all the crew members are dead.
At a distance of about 1,500 yards south of the last dive point, at a depth of 838 meters, parts of KRI Nangala have been found.
Italian coast guards have rescued at least 100 seaborne migrants in an overcrowded boat in the Mediterranean Sea. The vessel, which had at least 100 passengers aboard, including children, had people crowded on the bridge and below the deck when it was spotted on Saturday. After the fishing boat's motor stopped working, the vessel was at the mercy of waves with risk of overturning it. It was towed by the Coast Guard into a port in Calabria in southern Italy on Sunday. The exact number of nationalities of the rescued migrants were not immediately available. Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has resigned. However, he will stay in a caretaker position until the parliamentary elections take place on June the 20th. He has faced calls to step down since the signing of a Russian-brokered peace agreement with Azerbaijan in November. Following Pashinyan's resignation, all members of his cabinet handed in their own resignations as required by the Armenian law.
Thought it was important to resign today, on the Day of the Citizen. That's important because it shows that the power I give back to the citizen, the power I got from the Armenian citizen. We will respect the decision of the people, and we will without any doubt fulfill our duty in front of the population. If the people decides that I should not be PM anymore, I will respect that decision.
Many Armenians have welcomed Pashinyan's resignation and emphasized the importance of the upcoming elections.
People do not want Pashinyan anymore. Most of them. He does have some supporters, but there are not many of them. People do not want him.
I think that these elections should not be the same as last time, but different so that we have hope again.
We absolutely have to take part in these elections. It's very important to go vote and express our voice.
Albanians have headed to the polls in parliamentary elections amid the virus pandemic. Prime Minister Edi Rama is seeking a third term and has promised to quit if his socialists fail to win a majority. He faces a challenge from a dozen parties united behind the main opposition Democrats. All parties said they will deliver the reforms needed for the Balkan nation to fulfill its dream of joining the EU a year after the bloc agreed to open membership talks. The country of 2.8 million people is among the poorest in Europe, and the coronavirus pandemic has made matters worse, with the vital tourism sector suffering a huge slump.
We want order and employment. Young people should not leave. They should stay here. New jobs should be created.
First of all, I want my child to feel safe, so that no one is harmed when they go out on the street. This is very important to me.
French Jewish organizations have called for justice for a murdered woman after the killed avoided being tried on the grounds of he acted in delirium due to drug taking. Jewish groups have reacted with outrage to the decision by France's highest court last Wednesday that Kobili Traoré was not criminally responsible for the murder in 2017 of Sarah Halimi. The 65-year-old Orthodox Jewish woman died after being pushed out of the window of her Paris flat by neighbor Traoré, who shouted "God is great" in Arabic. The court said he committed the killing after succumbing to a delirious fit and was not responsible for his actions. Jewish groups said the court ruling had made Jews less safe in France, while lawyers representing Halimi's families said they intend to refer the case to the European Court of Human Rights. Israeli police have arrested at least 44 people in Jerusalem during a protest by Palestinians against Ramadan restrictions. Security forces clashed with Palestinians angry about Ramadan restrictions and Jewish extremists who held an anti-Arab march nearby. Tensions have spiked in recent days in Jerusalem, which has long been a flashpoint in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and is home to holy sites sacred to Jews, Christians and Muslims. Police used stun grenades and a water cannon to disperse protesters, who then attacked the Jerusalem district court with rocks and stones. Meanwhile, scores of Palestinians have rallied in Gaza to denounce the clashes in Jerusalem. Hamas leaders have warned the great repercussions for Israel because of ongoing attacks. It would seem to be a retaliation for the incidents in Jerusalem. Palestinian militants in the Gaza Strip fired 3 rockets towards Israel late Friday. This was later answered by Israeli warplanes, which struck the Gaza Strip early Saturday.
Hamas warns of the great repercussions of the region in case the attack against the holy city and the violations against the places of worship. Churches and mosques continue. Our people and its resistance will not stand idly in case of an attack against the city of Jerusalem.
Hungary has reopened the bars and restaurants for outdoor service after nearly 6 months of lockdown. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán decided that restaurants and bars can reopen their outdoor terraces from Saturday, as more than a third of the population has received at least 1 vaccine dose. Orbán also said other services such as hotels, theaters, cinemas, gyms and indoor dining will be allowed to reopen once 4 million people have received at least 1 shot of vaccine, expected by the middle of next week. Hungary has carried out one of the fastest coronavirus vaccine rollouts in the EU, thanks to its use of the Chinese Sinopharm and Russia's Sputnik V jabs. But it has also one of the highest COVID-19 death tolls in the world in relation to its population size. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.